Hello, and welcome to AG3 Online, the third International ARAKAWA+GINS Architecture and Philosophy Conference. My name is Jondi, Keane, co-organizer of the conference, along with Martin E. Rosenberg. And on behalf of ARAKAWA+GINS, on behalf of the AG3 Online Conference Committee, Trish Glazebrook, Russell Hughes, and Bobby J. George, as well as the curators of the AG3 Creative Response exhibition, Bill Lavender, Alan Prom, and Jason Nelson, and the host institution, Griffith University's Center for Public Culture and Ideas, the center's director, Professor Andy Bennett, the center manager, Sarah Gornall, and the staff. We all are pleased that you have joined us for the first entirely online conference devoted to the work of ARAKAWA+GINS. It's my pleasure to introduce you to the events coming online today, to give you an overview of the conference program, and to provide you with a context for the 2 weeks of discussion on ARAKAWA+GINS' work, the implications and the applications of their procedural architecture. At the end of my introduction, I will outline how the online conference will work and remind you to take note of the international time zone for each scheduled event. Once an event comes online, it will remain accessible online for the duration of the conference, and after the conference will be maintained as an ongoing research archive. The website provides ample information to get a sense of the accomplishments of ARAKAWA+GINS, their 40-year collaboration, but also their individual practices, which until the early 1990s ran concurrent with their collaborative works on films, exhibitions, installations, written works, built installations, houses, apartments, parks, unbuilt proposals for residencies, hotels, bridges, communities, schools, elder care homes, villages, and small cities. The resource page on the website offers links to previous conferences and websites associated with ARAKAWA+GINS' work and the scholarship regarding the range of concerns they address, and the modes of practice they develop. ARAKAWA+GINS' work draws upon and influences a wide range of current research across the arts, sciences, and humanities. Writing about ARAKAWA+GINS, as in this conference, is an encounter, quite literally a meeting or intersection of theories of knowledge practices characterized by the disciplinary viewpoint of the writer. To reflect this diversity and exchange, we have chosen to name the conference streams to indicate the starting points or the perspectives through which the contributor informs their encounter with ARAKAWA+GINS. Reading work by ARAKAWA+GINS, or about ARAKAWA+GINS, presents a different kind of challenge, a challenge of situating oneself in relation to information that is often unfamiliar. The literature that is required to engage with ARAKAWA+GINS' work consists of two strands. One strand includes studies aligned with affect, practice, and performativity, stemming from inquiries within art theory, feminist discourses on subjectivity, vision and visuality, spatiality, and aesthetic experience. The other strand draws upon sources in the sciences and the study of effects, repeatable conditions, and methods of verification, namely biology, neuroscience, cognitive science, biophysics, consciousness studies, experimental psychology, ecological psychology, autopoiesis, and dynamic systems theory. We could add to this, of course, as Jean-Michel Rabatte does, an additional array of discourses from Deleuzian and Heideggerian philosophy and linguistic analysis to phenomenology, urban studies, poetry, design, sociology, Buddhist logic, embryology, evolutionary theory, and of course, architecture. All of which attests to the immense vitality of a procedural thinking that traverses and coordinates all categories. In the broadest sense, this aspect of the conference is the most important. That is, the necessity of interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary approaches to the observation, study, and transformation of embodied and distributed cognition. ARAKAWA+GINS is the most advanced and inclusive project to address the human question, resisting the tendency to separate out ideas or methods for special consideration. Each aspect of their practice tests our seriousness, challenges our commitment to closure, and implicates us in a history of acquiescence. In order to provide a context for the ethos of ARAKAWA+GINS and for the aims of this conference, I will address two aspects of their project which polarize an initial reaction to their work. That is, the declaration to not to die and the seemingly static conditions of architecture. And from these, I will suggest that two vital processes emerge. That is, parlaying indirectness and the construction of heuristic life. So, for many, the first encounter with ARAKAWA+GINS is the declaration, "We have decided not to die," which is the title of the catalog of the Guggenheim retrospective from 1997. The undertow of this confronting statement stems from its personal nature, yet by stating what they have decided, we are also immediately implicated as supporters of the conditions that make their statement impossible. Many mistake this as an immortality scheme or an absurdist proposition, or an ironic stance thrown in the face of a troubled world. The point, however, is not to defy or erase death, but to test the seriousness of anyone who proposes to be an advocate for health and increased capacity. In what is often the very first moment of meeting, ARAKAWA+GINS state their position. And in the awkward moment that follows, an implicit cascade of questions occurs to us. Questions it takes a lifetime to ask and to answer. Questions that in a world without time must be asked before you say hello. If in response to this declaration, that is 100 questions packed into one, you turn inward and away, or you turn out towards an unknown, you are already deciding, grasping or letting go. How serious are you about this not caring? How serious are you about your commitment to closure and the comforts of identity? The statement sorts out those who will not foreclose on any possibility, no matter how seemingly impossible, as opposed to those who prefer to isolate the world into parts for the lavishness that this isolation affords. The second sticking point that many have with ARAKAWA+GINS' project is the observation that architecture is static, and a person would get used to the disorientation that ARAKAWA+GINS architecture provides, undoing its usefulness as an ongoing research tool. Architecture does not change or move, at least not at a tempo we would describe as movement. The answer to this notion of a static object lay in its complexity and in our ability to devise complex conditions and systems. For example, books and paintings, like architecture, are static objects in this generalized sense. The words of a book do not reassemble from day to day or year to year, and the paint does not rearrange other than to fall off occasionally, crackle, or fade. Yet from day to day and year to year, one's engagements with a select book or painting alters dramatically and even profoundly. Of course, a constant ongoing re-entry practice, like ARAKAWA+GINS, requires a more dynamic set of conditions. The degrees of freedom required to allow agents to sustain dynamic generative behaviors is a much more complex proposition. Whenever any system becomes complex enough in the relationships that it offers, it continually generates sets of infinite possibilities. This is what the invention and assembly of procedures as daily practice involves. Precisely producing conditions that are not the equal of life, but are equally generative. ARAKAWA+GINS' Reversible Destiny project shares this perspective with researchers in AL, artificial life, who have no sentimental attachment for the form that sentience might take. There are two vital processes that follow on from these polarizing positions that ARAKAWA+GINS claim. These processes address both impossibility and recursion. The first one, parlaying indirectness. ARAKAWA+GINS' notion of the organism, person, surround suggests a permeability that countermands identity in order to continuity to prevail. And this new mode of continuity, replete with the sensation of new connections, deregulates the labor it takes to move from organism to person to surround. Deregulation that crosses scales of action, linking research to embodied practice, and linking coordination of disciplinary findings to the collaborative shaping of our common world. Indirectness involves honing skills of anticipation that initiate change in the organism by altering the surrounds rather than trying to work on the automatic functions of the body through desire, will, or reason. If instead we are able to use the most complex forms of cognition to devise conditions and environments, we may dilate the relationships that would be imperceptible otherwise and hold them open for re-entry. And lastly, this notion of heuristic life. Arakawa and Gin's deployment of words and forms do have an overarching aim. A heuristic goal drives their most pragmatic of projects. Re-entry, tentativeness, indirectness, sighted awareness, landing sites, perceptual learning, all concepts of process from Arakawa and Gin's work, are not processes of production, but all aim to produce heuristic devices that supply an additional loop of awareness. In the way Arakawa and Gin's work unfolds, it asks the perceiver to become aware of the way she or he is perceiving, because awareness alone is all it takes to loosen the automatic functions of disposition and preference. Procedures, procedural knowing, and procedural architecture bent on enabling movement within and between modes of sensing and across scales of action is of no use if it does not provide a way forward, a way of learning. The inclination in the search for a new process, new method, or new tool is to opt for one way over the other. For example, to value perceptual learning over conceptual knowledge, to replace the discrete with the continuous, to value deeds over words. But a heuristic approach values what is made available, setting us up as the living term in the paradox produced when different realities are made to coexist. Learning in terms of evolution reflects the inventiveness of adaptation and pre-adaptive selection. Heuristic life applies emergent processes of learning and the degrees of freedom it makes available towards a transformative possibility. At the level of attention and of ethical engagement or historical consciousness, transformative change requires reconfiguration and coordination, and not devaluation or omission. This means engaging tactically built surrounds and the discursive sequences that constrain them. You will find the considerations I've discussed, the practices of openness, underpin or are explicitly addressed by the contributors of this conference. Now I'd like to talk to you about the conference program. In addition to the scholars and practitioners who have an existing relationship with Arakawa and Gins, the conference program includes new voices and scholarship and a new group of practitioners who see the relationships of Arakawa and Gins' work to their own practice. We have contributors from around the world, over 20 countries on 4 continents. Most of the contributors have not made Arakawa and Gins the object of study, but instead have used their concepts, processes, and built works to tease out the ethical considerations of bodies and persons in shared social space, while others have focused on the intercorporeal aspect of the collective endeavor. Professor Ohira, one of the contributors, characterizes the communal effects of the Reversible Destiny project as a shift from identity to we-dentity. The conference structure. On each day of the conference, we will launch a new event online. It will be either a keynote video presentation of about 40 minutes and a short introduction, like the one, well, mine's a little bit longer, but about a 5-minute introduction, followed by a live chat, or the event that will be launched will be a conference stream with an invited short video presentation of about 20 minutes and the posting of papers related to that conference stream. The first conference stream that will come online tomorrow will be Art and Architecture. And due to the number of submissions that we received, the papers will be posted over 2 days. The live chat will follow the video presenter's presentation at a time that allows most everyone in the world to view the video. So it'll probably be a 2 or 3 hour lag between the video and the live chat. Then for each conference stream, an asynchronous forum will commence and allow ongoing discussion of the stream content to continue for the remainder of the conference. Please remember to note the times and different time zones that may, in some cases, mean that an event launched in Brisbane will come online the prior evening in Paris or the prior day in Los Angeles. We do plan to make 4 different conference programs that have the different time zones, and we ask you to try and take note of each of those. The events that will come online today include a print interview of ARAKAWA+GINS with Martin Rosenberg, and a video by the residents of the Mitaka Reversible Destiny Loss in Tokyo, which have been done in collaboration with Momoyo Homa, the director of the architectural body Research Foundation, which has its offices in the Mitaka lofts. Martin Rosenberg's interview will prompt ARAKAWA+GINS to discuss their approach in light of Eastern and Western philosophy, the role of current research in their project, their use of language, the decision to move to immersive embodied environments, and their ideas about emergence. These discussions will act as a guide and a primer for the conference proceedings, which address the implications and applications of these ideas to the contributors' respective fields of inquiry. The video made by the residents of the Mitaka Reversible Destiny Lofts will show life at the lofts through the eyes of the children and offer insight in what it's like living in these tactically built surrounds for an extended period of time. Some residents, including the children in the video, have been there for more than 3 years. One last reminder to RSVP to the conference email, ag3@griffith.edu.au, which should come up now on your screen, in regards to 3 different closing events. The first one would be to reserve a seat at the Guggenheim closing event on May 1st from 1 to 5 p.m., of which there are only a limited number of seats, I'm sorry to say. The second thing would be to indicate if you will attend the Barnard College closing event on the evening before the Guggenheim, which will be the 30th of April from 4 to 8 p.m., in which there is plenty of room for everyone to celebrate on that occasion. And the third one to RSVP is to reserve a place on the bus trip to the Bioscleve House in East Hampton, Long Island, which is approximately a 3-hour bus ride leaving from Manhattan on Sunday morning, May 2nd. We'll tell you the place and the time specifically. Once we know the numbers for the bus trip, we'll be more able to know if more than one bus is needed and obtain a price per person. We hope that you will find the conference valuable as a generative public space of debate and as an ongoing research archive. I will no doubt speak to some of you online in the live chats and meet others of you at the closing events. Please enjoy the conference. Thank you very much.